Okay, everybody ready? All right, great. Good evening, everyone. It is 6:30, October 1st. Happy October. This is the committee meeting for the Northern Lebanon School Board of Directors. I do call this meeting to order. We are meeting as a committee in the whole this evening, and I would just like to publicly announce that the board met in executive session immediately prior to this committee meeting to discuss a matter of student legal issues. So with that said, there are no presentations for this evening. And we did ask all the public that was interested in providing public comment to indicate by 3 o'clock if they had any. We did not receive any, so at this point, we'll just move immediately down to the items for discussion. We'll attempt to establish our consent agenda and any voting items for next week. So turn it over to Dr. Messinger.
Okay, 5.1, 5.2, and 5.3 are our typical minutes. Student activity account numbers will be there for you as well as cash disbursements. One thing that we will add that I think got lost in the shuffle is we typically do a monthly cyber charter school report, V3 report. We'll make sure that that gets attached. That's where we'll attach it, Ms. Sartman. Right there in that with those cash the cash disbursements with the financial information. Okay. We'll have that all set for you for next week.
Okay. Any questions? Okay.
Budget and finance 6.1 is our ATSI non-Title I school plan. That is a plan that targets our special education students in terms of supports that we are giving them for our standardized tests that the state of Pennsylvania requires, obviously. We put together, each year we look at the data, we put together a plan to support them and help them increase the number of students that are in special education to get to proficiency. And that has been something we've done for the past couple of years, 3 years. I think once we started data, well, we didn't have PSSA as one, we didn't have testing, I should say, for a year or so there where we were getting results, but yeah, it's been a while. 6.2 is a student agreement that we'll have attached for you. Any questions on those two items?
No. Okay. Well, those will be on the consent agenda.
Okay, 7.1. This is actually one that we approved a while ago in terms of lighting for the auditorium. Pittsburgh Stage came in and they did a revamp of our lighting. It was something we had planned for. We had put money aside into capital projects and intended to use that, and that was all approved. At the end of this, what was discovered was when they first came and they did an evaluation of our system, we have separate lighting on the stairs. In the stair areas around the stage. If you've been to any of the programs, you've seen that lit up with kids that either going up and down or standing there doing different things. At the time when they originally looked at it, those lights were in working order. They are now not. The board, am I saying this correctly, Brett? No. Okay, we can talk about the board. The board is not working correctly. Go ahead. You explain it better than I do.
The new light design did not account for the stairwell lighting. So that's a little different than the non-functioning. And then the light board itself is no longer supported. So though it works at the moment, it may not work when it comes to production time. So we thought it'd be in the best interest to bring us up to date with a board that is supported. So two different things, lighting on the stage, that's 4 additional lights, plus a replacement light board. Which would be similar. I believe it's the same model as what we have at the elementary school. So there'd be some crossover in training and knowledge base for the people that run it.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. I should just turn all technology things over to Kirk and Brad. What I don't know, Leanne, I don't know if you've worked through, are we going to tap back into capital projects for that?
Yes, I believe this should come out of our capital projects fund, where we do have money for this, and we had set aside for the other one as well if it goes over for the construction project of the actual auditorium. It can cover both those.
Okay, so that is one that we would, I mean, the original amount was over $300,000. So comparatively speaking, this is obviously a smaller amount, but that would take care of those lights that were on that other board. Any questions about that Brad could answer for you?
Yeah, I get nervous anytime you say the board isn't functioning.
The bo-
Now, is it necessary to replace those? Do we need those extra 4 lights for like the theater class or?
Yes, all of our performances, because we have a very narrow stage in depth, we need the wings in order for it to be a performance space. In my years here, I don't know that I can think of one performance that didn't utilize one side or the other side for that additional space. As a matter of fact, our stage is so not deep that they often will build out into the orchestra pit area, so they gain that additional space. So my assessment would be yes, it is necessary.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Would you like to move it to discussion?
Okay, hearing none, we'll keep it on consent.
Okay, 8.1. So this is something that it's one of those things that's been happening for years and years and years. Game help. If you've ever been to a volleyball game, you've ever been to a football game, you'll see people at the corners doing the lines for the volleyball games. I'm not going to say it correctly. It starts with an L. The person that goes in has the freedom. I want to say Labrador, but that's my dog. Libera, thank you. We have there's someone that's utilized to track that with the football games, that chain gang, the security, the ticket takers, all the help that we have. And one of the things that has happened, there's just been no formal document that has been placed in front of the board. And that would include, how much do we pay these people? And we haven't really changed that, but we felt that that it's something that we should include annually for the board at this point. This is Bruce fine-tuning. It's not a very long document. One of the things she emphasized on there is to make sure that they have clearances. Those folks need clearances, and make sure that they're filling out paperwork instead of the olden days where, maybe not of course when any of us were here, but maybe the cash was just being handed over 20 years ago or whatever, but a more formalized process that we wanted to put in front of you that we would then bring back annually. Just one of those things that Mrs. Bruce came across that we're trying to clean up. So that document is listed there. Any questions about that one?
And so those are the rates that we currently pay.
Those are the rates we currently pay, yeah.
Are the rates listed per game, per season, per,
Per game.
because that's not specified anywhere in the document, so.
That's a good point. Let's do that.
Okay, any other questions?
No, the pay is exactly the same. We're tightening up the process and want to make sure that we put it in front of the board because it is money that we pay out to folks that, they're employees. And that's not really something that we've done in the past. I'm sorry. They become employed. Not everyone is a current employee, but right. We're requiring those. Yes. Yes.
Okay, any other questions? Any desire to move this to voting? Okay, hearing none, we'll keep that on consent as well.
Okay, 8.2 are just some basketball coaching folks that we have employed. The ASL Club field trip is listed for you. They are going to Gallaudet University. You can see their rationale if you look at that document. That is in April. The annual New York City soup kitchen field trip is also listed there. And for those, just a reminder, anything that's out of state gets board approved, and that's why we have those listed there. And then finally, a request to graduate early from Sarah Richard is there for you as well. Any questions on those?
Okay, no questions. We'll keep those on consent.
Under number 9, curriculum, our elementary library curriculum, library and media services curriculum, grades K through grade 6. Feel free to take a closer look, holler with questions. If you see something that you'd like to discuss, we can always move it during the week. Just let me know. Under 10.1, we do have one resignation for personal reasons. Sonia's been a blessing to Northern Lebanon. She's done a great job. She's also our cheerleading coach. We will miss her, but wish her well in her next endeavors. We do have a redesignation from a substitute custodian to full-time staff. And then we have our list of mentors for you for some of our elementary and secondary folks. 10.4 is a correction for years of service. We had one of our aides that is now doing our accounts payable after a retirement that we had. And what we did there was actually the 2 years, she has 2 years of service that should have been credited to her. So that is a correction dating back to August 5th. When she was hired. We do have some folks that are taking credits and are eligible for column movement. They are listed there for you. And we also have our substitute list, which we have any additions or deletions. You will also find, Stacy, back to your question, we added a section for game help that has been working in those positions as well. So now you'll see game help additions and subtractions on the same substitute list.
Okay.
Any questions on those?
Just curious, is Sonia also resigning her position from cheerleader coach or just the teaching position?
She had actually informed us over the summer that she was considering resigning. I should probably talk about that privately.
All right.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I don't know that she would want me
Yeah.
to share.
Yeah, that's a exec session.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions? All right. That is the consent calendar then for next month.
Right. We have one informational item, and that is, we've gone to Cook Around the World 2 years in a row. We had trouble getting enough folks for this year. So they're asking to change that, to push that trip back 1 year to allow for another group of kids to come in that hasn't been there before. I think we'll have better response for that. It's been popular, but at the same time, you're tapping, so a lot of times you got those same kids taking those courses.
Mhm.
So they'd like to change that from April 2025 to April 2026.
Okay, great. Any new business from the board to bring to the agenda for next week?
I would like to discuss the construction project a little bit. I wrote down some of my thoughts, so I didn't screw up what I was thinking. About 6 weeks ago, we had a tour of the school, and I was happy and thrilled that we opened the school on time. But I've been by a couple times the past couple of weeks. I haven't seen a whole lot going on, but I know they don't do a whole lot of after school or weekend work. So yesterday I was able to get in, they had practices going on, and I peeked in what I believe to be the next phase, which is the wrestling room and the weight room and some of the locker rooms. And from having been there 6 weeks ago, I feel like there's been very little construction done. And I know I'm not an expert in construction or scheduling or anything, but I just, if it was my house and you were saying that in 4 weeks, this is totally gonna be done and totally furnished, you're gonna be ready to be moving, I wouldn't believe it. So having seen such little done in the past 6 weeks, I'm now very concerned. It's not just my concern. There's also other people that are concerned, and I'm being the squeaky wheel on it. And let me just read a few things that I wrote. Sorry, because I'm nervous. I'm just going to read this. The other thing that was confirmed today, and I won't mention the person's name, but they heard from a construction worker that the next phase won't be complete by August 25th, in their opinion, and that half of the crew had been moved elsewhere. And this is what I wrote, as the fall turns into winter and everything turns inside, we can no longer admire our turf fields, our football stadium, and the beautiful outdoors. Inside, we turn our focus and we see poorly lit hallways, concrete walls, boarded up doors, easy access to unfinished areas of the school, and rain coming in where the new gym is being built. As a student or teacher, I would find it very depressing to show up on a day-to-day basis. While construction is messy and we knew it wouldn't be perfect, there is no way we can accept falling behind our original timeline. It's very easy to sit here in a beautiful boardroom and talk about the building across the street, but if we sat in the building on a day-to-day basis, we might not be talking so positively about it. As of right now, we only have one gym to house both boys and girls basketball and no place for high school, junior high, elementary boy and girls wrestlers. Previous years, there would be preseason lifting by now and optional practices, and there is none of that. PIAA, I believe, sanctions 2 weeks of practice, and that doesn't look like it's going to be possible. No one needs me to say that Northern Lebanon has made a name for them in the wrestling community. While we are all working towards excelling in all areas, including academics and the arts, we can't lose a reputation that we have built with our winter sports. We can't afford to gyp the students extracurriculars they deserve. The only acceptable practice is to be ahead of schedule. Knowing we will not make it or be behind schedule is unacceptable. So I would like to propose that the school board votes on somehow keeping us either earlier on time for all these phases, not just this one, but all of them. I'm not sure how that would look, but if we need to hire, additional workers or pay people overtime, we always talk about the mental health of people, and I think students there on a day-to-day basis, it's already a mess, and to have them say that we're behind and the sports aren't going to happen, I feel like for the mental health of our students, teachers, coaches, and staff, we need to be ahead of schedule and not behind. I'm just trying to see how the board can propose that we can keep them accountable and keep them on time with this.
I'm not sure that there's anything that we can do as far as voting. The construction project is what it is and the contract is what the contract is. How about if we had a construction update each month? Would that alleviate some of your
Well, we're getting
concerns?
those simple weeks, right?
Right. I guess part of my concern is that, this is some hearsay about what somebody said and what somebody heard somebody say. I think an update is about the most that we can do. I don't know that there's
So
anything that we can
October
do.
25th, if the winter sports don't have access, what is our backup plan? Everybody said there's no backup plan. We don't need a backup plan because it's going to happen October 25th.
Well, I think, I think there's a couple, there's a lot of factors there, and I'll let Dr. Reese talk a little more about it. But I think, first of all, there's probably not a superintendent in the state of Pennsylvania that values the athletics as much as I do. And as a matter of fact, I think I said today that if we are not able to get our winter sports in up and going on time, that there's going to be an outrage. People are going to be outraged. I have repeatedly over and over and over and over again talked about what we need to do to be ready for that. I've sat in multiple meetings internally to discuss logistics. We've taken care of, and if Rusty wants to reach out to me, we can talk more too, but it's my understanding that they have a plan to get through that original, like the 25th, that original timeframe. The season officially starts the 15th. I know everybody wants to get in there before that for open gyms, so use that as a general terminology. We've worked through all of that with basketball. I believe it's been worked through with wrestling. But as far as timeframes go, both I informally, but Dr. Reese is at meetings constantly talking about these dates and what needs to be done. Would you like to elaborate on any of that?
I mean, the only thing I'll say is President Nam is accurate in saying that we have contract language that both hurts and helps us in the completion of the project. But the thing that you can't plan for is the unforeseen condition. And an example of that is that we have a beam that was placed in the building during the last renovation that is now hanging because it wasn't done correctly during the previous one. Well, what does that do? That puts us behind a schedule, depending on what schedule you want to look at. Why does it put us behind? Because now they've got to manufacture the beam to repair the beam that wasn't set correctly to begin with. And regardless of what we do in this room, we're not going to change the time factor it takes to manufacture that new beam and install it. So that puts certain things behind schedule. And that's just a small example of the things that happen on a, I don't want to say the unforeseen conditions happen on a regular basis, but they happen more frequently than they don't. And that does change the timeline. It is true that construction folks know what our deadlines are, and they have been shared with them time and time and time and time again. And they're the ones responsible for delivering on time. They know that they need to deliver on time, but sometimes there are things out of their control that they can't overcome. As far as what we can do moving forward, I assure you that they know the importance of finishing key areas on time. You'll recall that we had conversation when we did the building tour that the auditorium was a space that we needed to use for flex because we couldn't get the students into the band room. I believe middle of next week, students will be able to move into the band room and then the auditorium will get turned over. And that has put the auditorium behind schedule for completion going into, the winter concert season. Teachers are aware that there's a possibility that we may not be in the auditorium for winter concerts, so they have a couple of choices on how to prepare around it. But I assure you, they know the importance of finishing the sports areas on time. And when I say on time, the time factor that we've been using is the one that you referenced, which is the 2-week preseason window as being the on-time start. As far as any further details, I can assure you that there have been administrative conversations regarding how wrestling would meet their typical open gym and prep time that you referred to. If that's not happening, that's news to me, and we probably need to look into that.
And there's no wiggle room for asking for overtime. I know you just mentioned the beam, but for other areas, overtime or.
The problem with
additional
overtime
work.
is it doesn't overcome the thing like the unforeseen condition of a beam. They can bring people in to work, but they can't work on something that's not ready to be worked on.
What's a contingency if it's not ready? Like I kept saying that earlier, what are we gonna do if it's not ready? And everybody just keeps saying it's ready. It's gonna be ready. Don't worry
Well,
about it. It's gonna be
I mean, it depends on what the factor is of how far out it's not ready. If it turns out not
I
to
know,
be.
I know this sounds like it's selfish on my part. It's actually not. My own kid, he's gonna be fine whether it's a high school or not. There are so many wrestling families and other winter sports families, I'm sure, that are very concerned at this moment. And just having been there yesterday, and we just talked about the mental health, and I feel like that's a big part. Kids need to be part of the winter sports season and have something exciting and something new and to deal with all the other dingy parts of the school that we're dealing with right now. And I'm putting my neck out there because I'm hearing it from a lot of people. A lot of people are not happy and they're gonna start showing up at these board meetings.
Well, I would caution the public. I mean, we do understand what social media was saying going into the opening of the school year. We did open the school on time, contrary to all of the rumors that were going into it. We
Including.
can't lose focus on the factual place where we are, what the reality of the situation is. It would be unfair to take words that are being spread by people that aren't in positions to speak on behalf of the schedule and take that as gospel. We have to be careful.
I mean, as far as something to deliberate, do you have a recommendation for next week? Because I think you've raised some issues that I think admin needs to investigate. I mean, somebody clearly said to somebody that something's not going to be on time. If there's something on social media, I think we need to give admin a chance
It was not
to look
social
into
media,
that.
it was-
No, I'm referencing what Dr. Reese said. If there are other things that are being said, we need to give admin an opportunity, but is there a proposal to bring to the board for deliberation next week?
I'm not even looking at the first phase. If the first phase gets delayed 3 weeks, the next one might get delayed 6. Like where can we do anything to
Okay, so
get
to,
close to staying on schedule for all the different phases?
so there is, like President Nam said, there is language in the contract that holds them accountable to the schedule. If they fall 15 or more days behind, they're required to do what's called it's, for lack of better, I don't remember the technical term, but it's a makeup schedule. How are you going to make up those days? That's the contract language protection that we have. Now, I don't have my calendar in front of me. I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared for this conversation, but when you start mapping the days out, there's no place that's 15 days behind. So there's not a requirement for them to do the makeup schedule yet. I don't know if that helps you, but 15 days is the contract language protection that we have, if you can call it that.
Yeah, I don't, without knowing who the construction worker is talking about layoffs and things like that. I mean,
They didn't say layoffs, since they got moved to a different part of a different project.
which has happened through all of the projects that we've done, because when you look at who is here, how many different types of folks I don't even know, have a guess. When you look, you got people doing drywall, you got people doing masonry, you got people doing digging, you got people doing plumbing, you got people doing HVAC, and they're all different subcontractors. So if someone is ahead, or even someone is at a point where they have to wait for a problem, they potentially do send people to another job where they can work on that versus just having them hang out. So
What hours do they generally work that if we were interested, we could come by and see that?
well,
somebody's
that
actually doing
depends on what contractor you're referring to and what type of work they're doing.
Because anybody, just to see somebody doing something.
May I make a recommendation that the board invite a Fidavia representative next week to discuss
Yeah.
the time factor? I mean, they are our construction management company. They're as much responsible to make sure the contract meets the deadline as anybody. So I think it would be best to hear from them.
I think the more people that hold them accountable, the less likely they're going to be like slacking. So that would be a good idea.
Okay. Are you comfortable with that for next week? Do you have a specific proposal? Well, I guess the issue with a vote is to require any change of delivery terms would be to require the renegotiation of a contract, which we can't do publicly. Delivery terms of a contract are the delivery terms of the contract. So to require them to deliver ahead of time or to be ahead of schedule is to modify that, which is not something we can deliberate in public. So that's my only concern as far as a deliverable for us. I think to give admin an opportunity to investigate what you have heard and to have Fidavia come and give a presentation on the timeline, I think is the best that we can do at this point. If you have some ideas during the week, let me know.
Well, contingency, like if we find out November 5th, they're not going to be ready, what
Okay.
are we going to do?
Well, I think, I mean, I can reach out to Rusty. I mean, Scott has talked to Rusty, but, I mean, worst case scenario, just off the top of my head, we can roll and unroll wrestling mats in one of the regular gyms and utilize that space, any of them. We're using the middle school. We're at the point now where we actually have custodians folding up tables, cleaning the floor, so we could even use the middle school gym. That's why we kept that a hardwood floor and basketball nets in there for the time being. So we're currently operating schedule-wise with, and on top of it, we have fall play, but we have everything mapped out. We have all three gyms in usage after school or availability. Not every day is it requested. We had actually talked to BC Fitness about lifting. We were told that they had a different plan and they didn't need to go there, but we certainly can contact them again and put together a time for wrestling to go out to Jonestown to utilize the weights if that's what the coach prefers. We'll reach out to him between now and next week to try to see what his needs are and talk through. But I really, I mean, we've kind of gone through this enough times to know they've, in all of these projects, it never looks that way. Those that were here for elementary, I mean, when we walked through that, people were saying, there's no way, there's no way, there's no way. And yet we opened that day, that first day. And we were ready for the community night and the open house. So I know that, I mean, you wouldn't have said that a week before our open house here, the way it looked. But they've hit those marks continuously. And, as far as the actual workers knowing what's going on, when we have those meetings, and there's a lot of bigwigs in those meetings, but there's no actual workers and like no actual, unless you are a manager, so to speak, or a foreman. I'm sure I'm using the correct terminology. That's who's in those scheduling meetings. It's not the guy who's actually putting up the drywall. So for them to talk to people about, oh, well, they're not going to make it. They don't know what conversations are happening behind closed doors that their bosses are talking to us about. So I'm a little hesitant to get too excited because we talk constantly with the heads of those departments.
So in connection with the Fidavia report next week, would it be possible for admin to give a broad picture contingency assessment of what we might have to do in the event that we're behind?
Yeah, I mean, we have basketball completely done, and I believe we have wrestling already done. I believe there's already plans in place and plans for plans that don't work. We have plan A, plan B,
Yeah, and
I
I've
think
asked
at
that
this
before,
point.
and I was just told it will be done. Like if someone has
I
a
mean,
complaint,
I-
if something happens and it's not done, this is what we're gonna do.
And
I
that
would've
would
been
be up.
satisfied with that, but I just kept hearing all the time, it's gonna be done, it's gonna be done.
And I
Don't
do
worry,
believe
it's
it
gonna
will
be
be done. But I also believe that, I mean, we talk through things to make sure that we do have, and we've already worked through with custodians plans on how to get things cleaned up um, um, and ready to go for lunches in the morning and cleaned up for practices at night if we need to roll out wrestling mats and or practice basketball like in the middle school gym where they're eating too. So I mean, I think we do have plans in place so that people can practice and be ready to go.
done.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. Any other items to bring? Okay. Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. We will see you next week.
So I was over there the other day too, and
Can you hear the rain coming in?
I
Oh my